4 simple steps to get out of debt. I am a full-time financial coach now, but I practiced law for about 7 years. I practiced trademark law. We had over $678,000 of debt, and almost $500,000 of it was student loans. We have since paid off all of the debt but our mortgage, and I have helped other lawyers pay off over $400,000 of debt collectively and save over $100,000, also a collective number. The number one thing that keeps lawyers in debt is simply not creating a strategy to get out. Treading water month after month. We stay in the same place with the same debt that we had. We're no better off than the month before. Sometimes we might even be worse off. Step one, we want to figure out where you stand now. How much money do you make? Not what's your salary. How much money do you actually see? How much is coming into your checking account? How much are you spending each month? How much of that is going back out? And where is it going? For example, I'm spending this much on my house or my apartment. I'm spending this much on my car. I'm spending this much going out to eat. I'm spending this much on, my kids. How much debt do you have? What are the current balances? Who are the servicers, meaning the companies that own that debt that you're paying? Who are they? What's the minimum payments on each of those debts? What's the interest rate? When you have that readily available at your fingertips, then it gives you a really clear picture of what's going on with your debt. And it allows you to make strategic decisions about how you want to handle it, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. We want to know how much money you have in savings, if anything, because we want to know whether you're living on the edge or not. And we want to make sure that we get you off of the edge if you're on the edge. That is step one. Figure out where you are. Step two, we're going to create a surplus between your income and your expenses, meaning we're going to make sure that you're not spending everything that you make. And this isn't just about cutting expenses. It can also mean making more money. So going back to my own example, we did both. My husband had a second job for a while. I would sell things around the house. There was this app called OfferUp, and I would put things on there. And if somebody wanted to buy it, then I would just take it with me to work, and I would tell them they could meet me in the lobby of my building or at this restaurant across the street. Because we weren't used to having that money, then we were able to put it all right toward paying down our debt. And this doesn't have to be a long-term thing. So I've had clients get a second job just long enough to make some extra money to pay off some of their debts, because once you pay those things off, it kind of gives you more wiggle room in your budget. You no longer owe those minimum payments. That's extra money that you have available that you can use for things like paying off debt. Now, creating that surplus can also be cutting expenses, and that's what we typically talk about. That's what people are used to thinking about. But the key here is we're not cutting to the point that you deprive yourself of all the things that you love, because if you do that, you're going to hate it and you're eventually going to give up. One of the key things that I teach my clients is balancing the things that are important to them with their goals. You want to plan your spending in a way that allows you to do things that you enjoy, because you'll be much more likely to stick with your plan. And sticking with your plan long term is a key part of being able to get out of debt. Step three, we are going to build a buffer of money. This is the step that many people miss because we're so focused on getting out of debt. We skip straight to that part, and we don't think about creating a buffer. But you need a buffer between you and any unexpected expenses or emergency situations or things that might come up. So if you don't have savings, we want to pause before we get to the paying off debt part and build up our savings. The key line of defense in this building a buffer situation is having emergency savings. Right? So you want to build that buffer so you can protect yourself in case of emergencies. The traditional advice is to have 3 to 6 months of expenses set aside. But sometimes when you're just starting out, maybe that's a little bit too far, but we just want to have a couple thousand so that we have something to protect us, right? It is a completely personal decision. So I can't tell you you must have X or you must have Y, but I can tell you you must have something. So we're going to use the surplus that we created in step 2 to build up this buffer. So that way you don't find yourself in a situation where something unexpected comes up and then you end up kind of hindering your debt progress. Step 4 is we're going to pay down your debt. So we got everything set up. We know where you're starting from. We know how much you make, how much you spend, where it's going. We're tweaking that to make sure that you're covering things that you enjoy, but still making progress on your goals. You've got a buffer. And now we are going to use the money from the surplus to target your debt. Now, the key here is I want you to be strategic with this. One mistake that I see people make a lot is paying extra on all the debt, right? I get a refund and I'm going to put a little bit extra on all my debts, or I'm randomly going to make an extra payment on this debt this month, and then next month I'm making an extra payment on a different debt. We're not doing that. Some people do what's called the debt snowball. So they go from the smallest to largest balance. Some people do what's called the debt avalanche, where they go from the highest to lowest interest rate. For some people, it is a more personal decision. So for example, one of my clients had a loan that her mom had co-signed for her. And so it was really important to her to pay that one off first because she didn't want it to be hanging over her mom's head, right? Whatever way you choose to tackle it is fine. There really isn't a right or wrong. But the main point is we're focusing on one at a time. We're going to focus on one, pay that off completely. If there's money left over, now I'm going to go on to the next one, pay that one off completely, then the next one, and so on until you finish with that bonus or refund or whatever that windfall was. Focus in on one at a time so that you are not spreading your efforts, diluting your efforts by trying to haphazardly throw money at the debt and see what sticks. All right. So that is all you need to do. Figure out where you stand now, create a surplus between your income and expenses, build a buffer, pay down your debt. Here is why this works. First, when you have clarity into what's going on with your numbers, it takes out the fear and overwhelm that a lot of people have, right? I always say it's like there's a monster in the room, like, a kid who's afraid of the monster in their room, but when you shine a light, it's just their jacket on the chair. Often the picture that we have in our minds of our finances is scarier than what's actually happening. So we want to know what those numbers are so that can take that fear away. You are going to know exactly what's happening with your money. You're going to be in control of it, which means you're not worrying about it. And for many of my clients, they get to the point that money doesn't feel like a major factor in their lives. It's just, it's something, but it's not like this huge thing that it sometimes feels like when you're first starting out.